I'm super excited to be here today. I'm going to join a couple of our lives real quick, and then we will start talking about gaslighting. I decided to move, give you a different look instead of the desk that you usually see, but so hopefully it feels a little homier than where I've been. But we're going to talk about how to gaslight your proof. Let me say it again. We're going to talk about how to gaslight proof yourself from toxic people. I was invited to speak with Dr. Robin Stern, who wrote The Gaslight Effect. I don't have a copy of her book to show you. It's been well received, has over 1,000 reviews. She is a highly trained psychotherapist who also now has her own podcast called The Gaslight Effect, same name as the book. And I'm going to be interviewed by her on October 16th. I don't know yet the date that interview will play, and I'll be sure to let you know. And I actually don't even know what the topic is, but I am unfamiliar with her book. I don't know how many of you have read it. So I started listening to it. I've been listening to it as a book on tape, and it's been fascinating. I have to say I'm struggling with some of her concepts. And in fact, I have started reading another book to sort of hear what another clinician has to say, another doctoral level psychotherapist, psychologist has to say about gaslighting. Because one of the things that Dr. Robin Stern says in The Gaslight Effect is that gaslighting to be effective takes two people. It takes the abuser who's doing the gaslighting and obviously creating deception and misdirection, but it also takes the abusee who's the willing participant who stays invested in the relationship and then somehow tries to convince the abuser, the one who's doing the gaslighting, that their perception or what they're claiming is actually false. And I had a real strong reaction to that. I'm looking for my glasses. Sorry, so I can see what you guys are saying. I had a real strong reaction to that because it implies a willingness. Actually, she even uses the word willing. It implies that there is an active participation on the behalf of the victim in their own abuse. And I really struggle with that. I realize as I stand back and look at my life that I have been gaslit my entire life. It was just a regular part of the landscape of my childhood home. It probably happened some in my first marriage at times. I wouldn't say my first husband was a chronic gaslighter. He certainly wasn't a person who wanted to be deceptive. Him being loyal and man of his word was really an incredible part of his identity, a real critical part of his identity. So he wasn't gaslighting an effort to be deceptive or to create a double life. Anytime he would gaslight me might be around my feelings around something, and more because he felt inept, like he didn't know what to do with my feelings. So it was just easier to say that me having the reaction was a problem instead of him looking at how his behavior was impacting me and then doing something about it. Because that's one of the things that I have noticed about gaslighting in general is that I think at one time or another, all of us have been guilty of it. I don't think there's a single person who can say they have never gaslit anybody, ever. And I started to really understand the term and what it meant and what it is. I realized I gaslit my kids. And it probably more often than I'm uncomfortable. I'm very uncomfortable admitting. I mean, I'm very embarrassed about it. If I was to redo that again, now what I know now, go back and do that then, I would have really handled raising my children a whole lot differently. So let's stop for a second. Let me introduce myself. We're going to be talking about gaslighting today in terms of emotional abuse, in terms of toxic people, toxic relationships. But I also want to give you 3 ways to gaslight proof yourself, to help you have the strategies to be able to manage this in a different way so that you are not as susceptible to gaslighting going forward in the future. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with me, I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy. You can call me Dr. Kerry. I am a licensed psychologist. I have over 20 years of counseling experience. I've dealt with relationships, families, individuals. I've also worked with personality disorders. And then I'm also a narcissistic abuse survivor. So I understand what it feels like to be on the inside of a toxic relationship, not just understanding what happens in toxic relationships, but I've actually survived one. And I'll tell you, I have to admit that has really made all the difference in my perspective, unfortunately. I there's a saying in graduate school that, you really prefer not to have wounded healers. You'd really prefer to have people who can stand objectively on the outside of something and then help you through it. But I have to say that being a wounded healer in this arena has given me an insight that I would not have otherwise had I not experienced it. So I'm thrilled that you're here with me again today. We're going to be talking, for those who are just joining right now, we're going to be talking about how to gaslight proof yourself. Three incredible, integral ways that you can make yourself more resilient, more resistant, and also just a better way to manage to kind of get through it so that you're not so susceptible to people who are gaslighting. So let's first of all start with, and as you all notice, I love to educate, and this is so much fun. So thank you for being here, for being on this platform. Please be sure to follow me. I'd love to see more of you and to get to know your story and get to know you guys better, because that's what I feel like we're building. We're building community here. So thank you so much for being with me. So let's talk about gaslighting. What is it? Gaslighting is really, in fact, it's not in the DSM-5. It's not taught in graduate school, and it actually comes from a movie. So how is that for a start? It's basically it's something that it actually is happening interpersonally. It's an interpersonal dynamic that's pivotal. It's critical to understand, but it's not something that we've really done a lot of theorizing about. And thank you so much for that gift, Jeep Girl. I really appreciate that. So gaslighting is really a fancy way of saying that you're offloading your uncomfortable feelings to someone else's reaction. So that's simply what it is. You're instead of you owning what's happening between you and them and you doing something about it, you make the problem the other person. It happens lots of ways. Here's how I did it to my children. And I feel really bad doing this, but I have a feeling a lot of moms are with me, or a lot of parents are with me on this. I'd be trying to get out of the house. Say we're trying to get to work. I'm trying to get to work. I'm trying to drop the kids off to school. The morning's not going smoothly. We're now packing our backpacks and they're putting on their clothes. And then suddenly one of the kids has an issue. Just, maybe forgot something, or maybe remembered something, or maybe their shoes aren't quite fitting right, or they asked for a new pair of shoes and we forgot and we didn't get the new pair of shoes. But some issue comes up as we're heading out of the door, and my child would start to melt down. Yeah, so please let me know on YouTube if you're having a lot of problems. I'm not seeing problems on my end, but if are many of you having problems with the screen freezing? I'm going to continue with the definition of gaslighting. So one of my kids would be melting down as we're trying to get out of the house. And I would look at them and I would say something like, "What is your issue? Will you just pull it together, please? Or do you have to make everything such a big deal?" I would do something like that. Instead of saying, "Yes, you know what? We didn't plan for this very well, and I'm not running on time. We're not running on time. I understand you're upset. Let's deal with it when you get home." See, that would have been a better way to get through it. Okay, great. I'm glad to hear it's not everybody. Instead of like handling it by me accepting the fact that this was not a perfect circumstance, instead I make it about my child and then tell my child their reaction is problematic, making them feel bad for having a reaction. That's simply gaslighting in a nutshell. But toxic people, meaning the more pathological you are, somebody just said it's accountability. Exactly. And blame shifting. I agree. When we're really healthy in ourselves and we have a good sense of self-esteem, we aren't failure or mistakes or difficulty doesn't make us feel insecure or bad, then we roll with those moments. We're able to take that feedback from the other person, even discomfort or the stress of that other person's discomfort. We're able to take that feedback and own it and do something with it, and then do something healthy. We're able to kind of identify the issue, identify how we're feeling, maybe have other suggestions of what we could do differently. In other words, we don't feel ashamed. We don't feel insecure. And even if it's embarrassing, let's admit, not everybody says things that we're comfortable with. Say that you do something to a friend that really embarrassed them, and they said, "Why did you say that in front of them? That embarrassed me." and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't mean to embarrass them. I feel stupid. I feel humiliated that I embarrassed my friend. In that moment, you have a choice. You can either own that you affected your friend unintentionally or intentionally, and then talk about it and talk about a different plan, get a different way of going through it. Or you can then take that, shift it to your friend and make them out to be weird, sensitive, crazy, problematic, always creating situations. You can turn it and flip it and project that problem back to them for bringing the issue up. That's a choice we always face. And the healthier we are, the more able we are to deal with our uncomfortable reactions to how we affect people. That's really what it is. It's our having the ability to deal with our uncomfortable reaction to how we affect other people. Now, there are people, though, let's stand way, way back and look at the whole world. And if you just saw my video I put out yesterday, 20% of the world's predatory. What does that mean? That means 20% of the world likes to stir up problems, feels that other people are there for their benefit, feels that they deserve what they deserve when they deserve it. They are very entitled people. They walk around and use other people, and they have this incredible vulnerability to failure, to their own failure. They don't accept blame for their problems, and they're kind of like not always pleasure seeking, but they're always seeking something from other people or seeking something. They're kind of this dissatisfied person, and they're always on the lookout for something from someone else. So, yes, that includes narcissists. Yes, that includes psychopaths, sociopaths. That also includes a lot of other people in that big category. So these predatory people are not going to accept the blame. And on top of it, they're actually moving in the relationship in an exploitive way. They want something from you. They may want to take advantage of you. Maybe they want an asset of yours. Maybe they just want you to make them feel good. It could just be that. Maybe they just like to create drama, but there is a reason that they're pursuing the relationship with you, and it's not because of wanting well for you. They're not well-intended people. So this group of people, whenever you have a reaction, that's actually what they want. They want you to have a reaction. That means that they've succeeded in that task. Your success is a bother to them. They don't like you having more or getting ahead or being happier or whatever, because in their mind, the world isn't fair and there's real winners and losers. And when you win, then they're losing, and they don't like that. So they want you to lose, because then that means they're winning. That group of people actively gaslight. In fact, the gaslighting is part of the whole setup, the whole system. They're intentionally doing it in order to stir you up and to get a bigger reaction from you. They want to get a bigger reaction from you. So you've got those who are unintentionally you got those who are unintentionally doing it, like my example from myself with my kids. I did not mean to gaslight my kids. I just didn't plan out the morning well. And then I didn't know how to handle my son's emotions when he was being upset. And so what I did was I blamed him and blamed the situation instead of owning the fact that I didn't plan the morning out better. And that was on me. But that's why some of us do that. And I have a feeling, as I said earlier, we all have been guilty of this at one time or another. But as you get more pathological, people become more dysfunctional on this continuum of healthy to pathological or dangerous. The farther you get to the dangerous end, the more likely they're going to be doing this on a regular basis for lots of complicated reasons. And for those of you who are joining, thank you so much for being here. I'm Dr. Kerry McAvoy, a licensed psychologist. And today we're talking about how to gaslight proof yourself, how to protect yourself from gaslighters so that they don't get a rise out of you, so that you don't fall prey to their manipulation and exploitation. So we're right now talking about what is gaslighting and who gaslights is really where we're at this point. So those who everybody gaslights, but most people don't gaslight on purpose. But those who do it on purpose and do it a lot, I would say, are not very functional people. And they do it for a couple of reasons. And here are some reasons why. One is they can't accept failure. They, as many of you have already mentioned, they are accountability avoidant. And so it's never their fault, it's somebody else's fault. So the way for them to feel better about themselves is, instead of owning what they've done and how it affected you, they make you the problem. There's also people who are actually being deceptive. They're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and so as a way for them to kind of avoid that, they're making you the problem because they don't want you to know what they're up to. These are the people who are doing things in secret or in private, or having this a double life. In fact, today I just learned is Romance Scam Day. And for those of you who read my book Love You More, know that I was scammed. I had a marriage scam. Mine wasn't just a romance scam like you get with scammers who are looking for money. Mine actually was looking for money and was willing to marry me for it in order to get his cut of what I had inherited from my late husband's life insurance. So yeah, so he was living a second double life, and he was actively gaslighting me. And this is why it comes back to, Dr. Stern says it takes a willing participant. Well, in the beginning, when he's gaslighting me, because one form of gaslighting, by the way, is deception, just outright lying. I didn't know he was lying. When he said he was working late, I really believed he's working late. I didn't assume. There was no reason for me to suspect that he wasn't actually working late. I thought he was working late. He took some business trips, and on those business trips, I assumed he was where he said he would be. I had no idea that he wasn't. My first husband had to take business trips, and he always was where he said he was. So I had a history of people doing what they said. So when my ex said that he was taking a business trip, I assumed the same. I assumed that he was doing the job that he said he was doing. And I even missed, now that I look back, he'd come home from those trips and then we'd be without luggage. And I never really put it together, like, where's your dirty clothes and why am I not? In fact, he was supposedly cleaning factories. He should have had basically destroyed clothes, like really wet, dirty, grimy stuff. And when he would come home, I would never see the stuff, and I would think, did he throw them out? Were they so bad that they were not salvageable? I never put it together that it was all a lie. So I was being gaslit, and I didn't know I was, because I didn't know I was being lied to. So sometimes gaslighting can happen to us without our awareness, because we just believe what's being told to us. We have no reason not to believe what's being told to us, because history has told us that what people say generally is truthful. Until we've learned that there are some people who are deceptive, we don't anticipate deception. I certainly didn't anticipate deception in this situation. My parents didn't lie. My first husband didn't lie. Why would I think that my second husband was going to lie? So I don't think we're always a willing participant in our own gaslighting. I certainly was not being, Dr. Stern says you're over idealizing the person. Well, how could I over idealize something I assumed was reality? I wasn't over idealizing. People tend, in my life, in my world that I experienced, people who said I'm at work tended to be at work. That's not over idealization. That's just taking people at their word. I had no idea that my ex counted on me being blind to that, and that he wasn't actually at his work. So I found out later, but I didn't know at the time. Now, am I over idealizing him later after I found out that he lies like that? And then when he tells me something and then I believe it, yes, then I'm idealizing him. So my motivation, or what I was doing, changed. It changed from just thinking this is reality, this is normal, to now I know that this guy is risky, he lies, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. Now I'm the one who's being idealistic, thinking this person deserves my benefit of the doubt when they haven't earned the benefit of the doubt. There's a different dynamic going on. And if you read Love You More, you'll certainly find out that I do that in the story with this person. I later do sometimes give benefit of the doubt that he never deserved. And yes, that was for my own insecurity. But sometimes gaslighting happens and we don't know that it's happening, and it's purely deception. We're not aware we're being deceived. And sometimes I think another reason sometimes we get gaslit is because we're people of integrity. We believe people are good. We believe that the people in our life are well-meaning. And so when they tell us something and then they tell us that our reaction's upsetting, we tend to want to take responsibility for that, because we're kind and we see things as a mutual reciprocal experience. We don't realize that they're actually taking no responsibility and they're making us take all the responsibility. we're actually thinking they're giving us an honest reflection back, not being exploitive in that dynamic. So sometimes it's just we're good people and we just want to get along with people, and it's not a gullibility, it's not naivete, and it's not idealization. It's just us. It's just us believing in the best of the world. So I that's another thing I think it happens. I know that Dr. Stern doesn't talk about that in her book, but I do think that's another reason why we sometimes get gaslit. So I would love to know what your experience have been with gaslighting. So right now, I've said sometimes we're gaslit just because we don't know that our reality isn't real. Because we're basing it on reality, and that's all we've ever known. So it's hard to know that something's happening that you can't conceive. I remember clearly when I found out on the first night of my honeymoon that my ex, who said he was not in pornography, was actually in pornography. I didn't know that. He told me that he wasn't. I took him at his word. I kind of wondered if it was completely honest, but I found out on the first night when, which is humiliating. He opted out to have sex with me to watch porn. How like really? I mean, that was devastating to me. It's funny. Somebody wrote a comment on one of my videos about that, saying that I stayed in a relationship for the sex, and then I share these stories of complete sexual failure. Like, really? I stayed for the sex that wasn't happening. How could I be staying for the sex? See, even that's gaslighting. Watch out for that, guys. You'll get people coming on you and comment on your life, comment on your stories, especially if you create content, blame you for something. And if you really stand back and look at it, it makes absolutely no sense. I can't stay for something that's not actually happening on a regular basis or even in a meaningful way, or around something that's such a massive betrayal that I am so broken and wounded around it that I'm having big problems, because that's how hurt I was in that arena. So watch out for that. That comment was a form of gaslighting. Um, but then there's gaslighting that occurs to us because we're good people and we assume the rules that we follow, other people follow. So that's the second reason. And the third reason we get gaslit, and here's the one that's uncomfortable. I'm going to jump into arena that into a cause or a way in which we gaslit that I don't feel comfortable about. It is embarrassing to me. I'm sure it's uncomfortable for you. So let's hold on together. We can get through this together. But sometimes we get gaslit because we do want the relationship to work, because we are in love with that person's potential, because we really did think the love bombing was an actual real experience that we had that was capturable and that we can go back to it. So we have this idealized view of how we want things, and we believe that it can happen again. And so we stay hoping and believing, and we accept the blame that our partner or our loved one assigns to us in an effort to make that happen. There is what Dr. Stern talks about in her book, The Gaslight Effect. So if you want to understand more of that one, that book is really great to understand the way that we over idealize some people, that we get so emotionally invested in what happened and in this person and in this relationship that we allow them to betray us. And in that betrayal, we ultimately betray ourselves. I certainly did do that. When I found out that my ex was a serial cheater and that he had been lying consistently about doing the work of sexual addiction recovery when he wasn't doing the work, I continued to stay and hope and believe, and I continued to take on responsibility for whatever I could to make the relationship work, hoping that somehow it would be enough that he would then do the work and then our relationship would be saved. Yes, I did do that. Yes, I idealized him for sure. And that's the one where if you and I are guilty of doing that, we do need to look at why are we doing that? And I want to make sure that we cover that part of gaslight proofing ourselves, because that one is where, we're just taking on way too much. We're willingly throwing ourselves under the bus when we shouldn't be, because for lots of reasons. Maybe because we want them to choose us. Maybe because this is what's always happened in our life and everybody's made it about us and we're uncomfortable. Maybe it's because we don't know what to do without this person and we don't know how to go on with alone. Maybe we're afraid to be alone. Maybe we don't have the financial means and we need this person. They've made us dependent and we really need them that way. For me, he had me on the hook financially. He was partner of a business with, I had contributed all the capital, he contributed none of the capital, and he was threatening to take half. I was playing along partly. Also, I loved him. To be honest with you, I loved him. I was willing to love the broken man. I loved the person I met in the love bombing stage. Absolutely. That person was amazing. I wish he existed. He doesn't exist. Anybody, guys, everybody you meet in the love bombing stage does not exist. That person is a myth. It's a mirage. Never exists. The Dr. Jekyll does not exist. The Mr. Hyde is who's really is the person you're with. I was willing to love Mr. Hyde. Yeah, I don't know what that says about me. It's something I'm now actively changing because I don't plan to fall in love with another Mr. Hyde ever again. But I had fallen in love with Mr. Hyde even. But as a result of that, I was betraying myself over and over and over again in order to make that relationship work. And that's where I really have to do the hard work of looking at my part of this so that I don't do this again. So I'm not vulnerable again. So those are the three reasons I see us doing as the victim in gaslighting, that we either don't know it's not real and we're just being well, you don't know what you don't know, or you're assuming that they're like you and they're not, and so you're trying to make it work. Or the third one is that you really want the relationship to work and you're invested in it more so than you are invested in respecting and taking care of yourself, and you're taking on too much. So that's watch out for those things, because that's really makes you vulnerable. So how can we gaslight proof ourselves? Sorry, I got this little bug that's been flying around in this part of the room. It's driving me nuts. The first thing is, and this is going to be some hard work, and especially the first one, because a lot of us, we've gotten into these relationships where we are not tuned into ourselves anymore. If you've been in a chronically abusive relationship, either now or as a child, you have been taught to disconnect from yourself, to disconnect from your feelings, and to disconnect from your gut, because you've been in an environment that gaslights a lot and your feelings are a problem. That means everybody's got to stop and take care of the situation so that you're not feeling that way. And pathological people don't like to do that. They don't stop and slow down. So what they do is they say, stop being an irritant, stop being upset, stop being depressed, stop being so sad, stop being so angry, stop being so anxious. They tell you to stop. And then as a result, you think, well, I have to be here. I mean, if I'm not in my family, I'm dead, because that's how I'm growing. I count on them for a house, for a roof over my head, clothes that I'm wearing, food on the table. I'm going to need to go along with this. We all make this decision unconsciously. So you learn to stop paying attention to your body. You learn to stop paying attention to your feelings. And as a result, you don't often know what you feel. And your gut may be screaming at you, there's something terribly wrong, and you're paying no attention to it because you don't even know what your gut is anymore. So let's talk about how to get reconnected to your gut again. I'm having to do it. Honestly, I like I said, for those of you who saw me or heard the beginning of this live today, you heard me say I've grown up in a chronic gaslighting environment. It's so bad. This gives you a sense of how bad it was for me. Gaslighting was such a pervasive, chronic problem in my extended family that when I got to college, I saw a therapist in my first year because I was not doing well emotionally. Now, the school thought I was doing great. I held it together. I'm really good at holding it together, so the outside doesn't know how bad I'm doing. So that's how well I learned to cope. I learned to master my anxiety so that those around me had no idea I was doing that poorly. So I'm in college. I'm not doing great. I'm having a real rough go. I schedule an appointment with the psychologist, who then proceeds to gaslight me because I look like I'm very able to function and doing well. But yet I take that one appointment she offers me. She tells me she doesn't want to see me again. But she completely misses how much crisis I'm in. And I use that session to validate my reality. And I would say things like, so it's normal to be scared at school. Yeah, that's normal. So it's normal to be upset when this happens. Yeah, that's normal. So it's normal to be, when my roommate does this, to want to feel this way. Yeah, that's normal. I didn't even know what was normal. I didn't even know what was normal. I didn't know my feelings were okay. I didn't know that other people felt this way. I thought that I was some weirdo that dropped out of the sky from outer space and landed on Earth and was walking around and trying to figure out how to function. And by the way, I'm autistic. That didn't help anything. So yes, there was some things that were very different from me because I was neurodivergent in a family that wasn't very neurodivergent. So, that part was, a miss. Everybody was missing me, but I didn't know I was normal. That's how bad the gaslighting was. I completely was not in my body, not in my feelings. In fact, I used to assign, I'm embarrassed about this. I used to assign to the male clients who'd come and see me for counseling this feeling worksheet. So this is, by the way, this is a good exercise for everybody. You get a feeling worksheet, and if you can't find one, text me or DM me, and I'll be happy to give you a link to one. They're great ones. Brene Brown has one from the Atlas of the Heart. You can find them everywhere. They're really great. So get a feeling sheet with all the list of feelings. Set a timer multiple times a day. When it goes off, ask yourself, what am I feeling? And don't allow yourself to say, I'm tired, bored, or sleepy, because those are easy ones. Those are kind of somatic experiences. They're not really feelings. They're like body sensations. Hungry is another one. Don't do that one either. Force yourself to say something like, I feel a little nervous, or I feel edgy today, or I'm irritable, but I don't know why. I mean, figure out, listen to your feelings. And so after telling my male clients, who men tend to often have a harder time than women because we teach boys to not pay attention to their feelings. That's a societal problem, a cultural problem. I did it myself. You know what I found out? I didn't know what I was feeling either. So it's like, okay, heal yourself. You just discovered you're not very good at this. So I started doing that. It helped a lot. So that's the first thing to get better at listening to your gut, is to do that. But the second thing is to learn what it feels like to have your gut warn you. So I know it's really hard. A great book, if you want a really good book on this, get Gavin de Becker's book called The Gift of Fear. The Gift of Fear, Gavin de Becker. Gavin has a great story. I love it. Gavin witnessed his father unaliving or getting rid of his mother. And Gavin was in the house with his sister, and then he got his sister out of the way and to safety while this horrible fight was happening between his parents. And he had this uncomfortable feeling that something bad was about to happen. And he listened to that uncomfortable feeling and he acted on it, and it saved his life, and it saved his sister's life. I just had somebody get a hold of me who was telling me that they had a really uncomfortable feeling in a toxic relationship. They had this very bad feeling, and they acted on it. And now they wonder if they had saved their life. Chances are, my suspicion is yes. I had very bad feelings in this last relationship as well. I would make hunches, like my mind would tell me things that almost felt psychic, like guesses. This person's doing XYZ, and then I'd find out that person was doing XYZ. Now, do I believe that there is such thing as paranormal abilities? Sure, I do believe in that. But I think that wasn't so much psychic as me listening to my gut, and that my gut was picking up on signals that I couldn't pick up fast enough in my thinking head. My prefrontal cortex was not as sophisticated at identifying the danger. So here's a cool thing, is your gut system, and it actually is your gut. By the way, it's your GI tract, has more neurons for certain neurotransmitters. Certain brain chemicals are occurring more in your gut than they are in your brain. And so your gut is giving information to your brain about how you feel. That's why, like, if you get really nervous, your gut gets upset. Or you know how you, like, something's going wrong, and then you can't eat, and you don't feel good. Your gut is actually reacting to information that it's getting and picking up, and it's part of this fight or flight system, part of this early warning system. So imagine if we were living in a zombie apocalypse, and you put out a tin can like perimeter fence to warn you when someone stumbled through it so you can hear it. That would be your gut system. That early warning that something's off is your gut saying, wait, something is really bad happening. Pay attention here. So learn to recognize it. It's different than your base nature. Okay, so let me give you back up. My base nature is I'm an introvert. So if you invite me out to a party tonight and after a long day, I'm not going to want to do it. That's not a gut warning. That's just me. It's how I'm hardwired. I'd prefer to be home with the TV on and chilling because I've been with people. That's not my gut. That's just my inclination. Maybe that's a good way to say it. It's my inclination. Your gut warning feels like something different. It feels like another part of you. It's that hair rising in the back of your neck. Have you ever been as a kid, somebody pulled up alongside of you when you're walking home from somewhere, and then they asked you directions, or maybe they offered to give you a ride, or they asked you if you're lost, or maybe they told you that they're lost, and you had that funny feeling like, back away from this person's car door. This person's not a good person. There's something wrong here. I agree. Chelsea, you just feel it. I agree. That is your gut instinct. When you feel that, something is making me uneasy. I just don't like this situation. I can't tell you why. I'm not for often you won't know why. You may never know why. Your gut sometimes is picking up clues. It will never tell you what it picked up, but it just knows. So please really learn to trust that. One of the ones I've shared before was, I met my ex. He had been married 4 times. I know. Why was that not a clue? He'd been married 4 times, and he said he was divorced. He'd been divorced 2 years. There was no reason for me not to believe that, right? I mean, why would you not tell the truth about that? But something about him and something about that relationship, I just wasn't easy. I didn't sit easy with me. So 2 months in, I hire a private investigator to do a background check on him to see if that story was true. Now, meanwhile, I'm still plowing forward on the relationship as if we have a fantastic relationship while I'm paying a private investigator to do a background check. That doesn't already, you can see the cognitive dissonance happening. But see, my gut was saying, Kerry, don't believe him. He's not actually, you don't know if you can believe him, even though I had no reasons not to believe him. He hadn't done anything to me that was deceptive. And now going back and looking all the things that he told me in that period, I know he was lying to me. He was lying to me a lot. But I didn't know that. I had no reason to assume that. But yeah, hiring a PI was a warning. My gut was saying, I was so uneasy that I couldn't resist spending the money, and I didn't like spending the money. That should have been to me like, whoa, back off this. This relationship is not a good relationship. There's something profoundly wrong here. So learn to turn your gut instinct volume up and start to listen to it. And don't ask it to make sense. Please don't ask it to make sense. You're often not going to be able to validate it in the moment. See, that's one of the errors I made. I would have a gut instinct about something, and then I'd look for validation before I'd act on it. Well, then that kind of like completely defeats the purpose. Let's go back to the zombie apocalypse. If you're putting up a tin can warning system and you hear those tin can rattle, are you going to go look at why they're rattling? Or are you just going to act like, oh, something's wrong? This is an intruder alert, and we need to get our haul ass out of here, right? So please learn to listen to it, learn to recognize it, and then haul ass. If it's going off, get out. This person's not a safe person. And you know what? In hindsight, as I had the perspective and time to go back and look at every warning that it gave, it was accurate 100% of the time. It nailed it. Not only did it nail that something was wrong, it made great guesses. The guesses were accurate. So learn to tune into your gut instinct. That's the first of the 3 ways to gaslight proof yourself. Learn to listen to your gut. Learn to know how it's different from your inclination. And by the way, for those of you who don't know me, please follow me. I'd love to have you become part of my community. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a licensed psychologist with over 20 years of counseling experience, and I'm a narcissistic abuse survivor. Okay, so how to gaslight proof yourself. Number 2, how to do that. This is another hard one to talk about because it's something a lot of us do, something I've done a lot as well. A lot of us are externally validated. What do I mean by that? All right, you've put a little bit of weight on, you're feeling a little insecure, you put a dress, you want to go out, you're with your friends, you ask your girlfriends or your partners or whoever, you say, does this dress make me look fat? Or how do I look in this? What we're doing in that moment is, because we feel shaky, we're asking those around us to shore up our shakiness and make us feel better. That's called external validation. External validation. We all do this some time to time. It's not a bad thing that you do it, but if you're doing it a lot, especially with people who are gaslighting you, you hear what I'm saying? They're external validation. They're already creating a false reality, and they want you to live in this false reality. Do you think you're going to get good information from them about that reality? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So we need to become what's called internally validated. So let's go back to that. I feel shaky in this outfit because I don't like how I feel in it. how to become internally validated is to say, you know what? Okay, maybe I don't feel great in this outfit, but you know what? It doesn't change who I am and I'm going to be okay. Or I'm going to go change into another outfit. But in other words, we fix it ourselves and we do something about it and we move forward. That's internal validation. We soothe ourselves. This makes me feel shaky. I don't like the way that I'm feeling, but I know that I'm an okay person. I know that people love me for who I am. They don't love me how I look. And everybody has bad days and nobody's weight's perfect. I'm going to let myself go on this. This is internal validation. So why is it so important when it comes to gaslighting? All right, so let's use it for instance. So your partner comes home late from something and they normally aren't late and you think something's up. Your gut instinct is going off and saying this is not truthful. The story they're telling you is not truthful. And they then turn around and whip it and make it about you. You know what? You are always on me about where I'm at all the time. I think you're really paranoid. I think you have a problem. I think you need to go see somebody because that's a really big problem. Now, if you're externally validated, you would say to that person, "What? I'm doing this a lot. You think that I'm asking for way too much reassurance. Oh, maybe I am. See what happens? We cooperate with their view because we're looking to them to affirm that judgment. We want them to fix what they just said to us. So if they say that we're sensitive, then we're trying to get them to like back off and say, you know what, maybe I am, and maybe I really need to address that. And ultimately betray ourselves. But if we go back to the internal validation and they say that to us about they're late, they've typically not been late, something's off, they're not, you feel like something's not right and you feel something's wrong, and then they give you this cockamamie story, you can internally validate it would say, I know it's not me. I don't normally ask anything about this person's hours. There's something wrong here. I wonder why they're not telling me the truth. See, that's internal driven validation. And we're not depending on the other person to then confirm or make us feel better. We address it for ourselves. Yeah, Sly is asking a really good question. For people who learn external validations, were they raised to be that way because someone else does it? Yeah, well, external validation is common for a lot of us. Here's another way to know you're externally validating yourself. If you're talking a lot about your ex and what they did and didn't do and why they weren't changing and how come they didn't want the relationship more and all of that, that's external validation. Instead of you saying, you know what, I don't know why this person wasn't in the relationship, but I'm not okay with that. I'm not accepting that. I'm going to move forward and figure out what I'm going to do because this is not what I want to put up with in a relationship. That's internally validated, driven relationship. So a lot of us do this. A lot of us look to fix things outside of ourselves as a way to fix how we feel about them. That's another way to say this. We're looking to fix things around us instead of looking to fix what we're going to do about it. It's more work to fix ourselves. It's harder work. You know, if you're coming up on that exam and you're not well prepared and you haven't been not listening to class, it's easier to say that the teacher's asking the wrong questions or asking too many of the questions on the topic that they didn't cover well. And for you to, instead of you owning the fact that you didn't prepare, you didn't get a night's sleep, and you haven't been tuned in, and you didn't take notes. If you really want to do better, you need to start doing those things. It's always easy to blame outside instead of doing the inside work. So it isn't just because we've been raised that way. It's also because it's a lazy way of dealing with conflict or lazy way of dealing with things that are wrong in our world. And I know I'm saying that. And by the way, I've been the biggest externalizer in the world. And again, love you more is evidence of how much I've externalized in that relationship, how much I tried, how many times we tried a new therapist, we tried some new technique. How many times have I tried to show up and be a better partner thinking somehow I'm going to fix that relationship by me doing something in order to fix him instead of me doing the harder thing is saying, you know what, I'm stuck in a foreign country. I don't have a good command with the language. And I'm trying to run a business and this marriage is not making it. What am I going to do? Apparently I need to leave the marriage and figure out another plan. That's what I should have done in that book. That's what I didn't do because I kept trying to change him instead of addressing what changes I was going to make because he wasn't in the relationship. He was not invested. A lot of us do that. So if you hear yourself focusing a lot on the other person and not looking at what you're going to do or are doing or going to do going forward, that's a sign that you're doing a lot of external validation or external control. But when we're being gaslit, so let's bring it back to gaslighting. When we're being gaslit, when we agree with that blame, with the way that they're characterizing whatever it is, that we're too sensitive, that we're crazy, that we're not remembering it correctly, that we never get things right, that we never get off their back, or whatever it is that they're saying to us. When we do that, then that moment, we then, instead of us like hanging on to the truth, knowing that's not accurate, knowing this person is being unfair and they're distracting us from the real issue that they're not wanting to deal with, then at that moment we are cooperating with the gaslighting. And in order to get better at not being gaslit, we need to stop cooperating with the gaslighting. Here's one example. This was one of the moments in my marriage with that ex that really shifted everything, just really shifted the dynamics in that relationship. I caught him texting somebody, and I knew it was a woman. I could see the image on the text to see he had a photo of the person. I could see that this was a woman, not a man that he was texting. And I said, "You're texting a woman. Who are you texting?" Okay, already I'm closing down his opportunity to gaslight me. I said, "You're texting someone." So he couldn't say, "What do you mean? I'm not texting anything. I was just looking at something." No, I said, "You're texting something. I know that to be true. And I also know it to be true. It's a woman. I saw the woman's photo." He said, "Oh, okay. I'm texting my sister." I said, "That was not a photo of your sister. I saw the photo. It wasn't your sister. Who are you texting?" So already he's now trying to gaslight me. I'm holding on to what I know to be true because I saw it. I witnessed it. And he said, "You know what? You're just making things up. That's not actually what's happening." And this is what I said. I said, "I saw it. I'm not making it up. You're texting a woman. Who were you texting?" And I just kept repeating that over and over and over. It's interesting what happened. His first reaction was he fled the room and tried to argue from me from another room. I came back and demanded to see the phone, which he then said he deleted it. Apparently, he did that in the other room. I continued to persist that I knew the truth, that he was texting someone, and that I was no longer going to even debate or argue this reality because it was true, even though he was trying to tell me I was wrong, that I didn't see it right, that I didn't talk about it fast enough, that he was texting somebody that it was an innocuous person. I refused all of that and kept staying the truth over and over and over. So we fall asleep that night. We have no resolution. We wake up and he says, "I'm sorry you got your feelings hurt." Now there's another form of gaslighting. That's a nice form of gaslighting. He was now trying to be sympathetic and attentive to me, thinking that he was going to distract me from the point. And I said, "No, I didn't get my feelings hurt. I saw you text a woman that's not your sister. Who were you texting?" And he just looked at me and he finally said, "Well, you promise not to get mad if I tell you?" And at that point, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm over the anger. I just want to know what the hell is happening. So I said, "Sure." He said, "Yeah, you're right. I was texting a woman. I was texting my girlfriend." "Yeah, okay, I figured that." "All right, now we have a problem." I said, "Now we have a problem. I already knew we had a problem. I've been saying we had a problem. You've confirmed we have a problem. Now I said, what I got to do is decide what I'm going to do going forward. Because we said, you're not doing this anymore. You did this. So now it's in my balls in my court what I'm going to do about this." That's what it looks like when you hold your ground and you don't let someone gaslight you. Now, it may go differently for you. You may have someone blow up, storm out, do stonewalling, give you the silent treatment. Be careful, because when you do this and you hold on hard enough, long enough, sometimes some people will get violent. So really know that the person you're doing this with, and make sure that you're not at risk. And if you are at risk, if I thought he was going to hurt me and I didn't think he was going to hurt me, I didn't feel that, I would have broke it off and then just decided what I was going to do about it independent of him. I didn't need the validation from him. I didn't even need him to agree with me. I knew the truth. The truth was he had done something wrong. So that's step number 2. Step number 2 is become internally driven, internally validated about your reality, so that when someone tells you something, like you say, "You know what? I'm upset that something happened." And they said, "Oh, you're so sensitive." No, you're not sensitive. Your feelings are valid. You have a right to your feelings. Or if something's making you feel uncomfortable or feels dangerous and you don't want to be there, and you think, "You know what? I need to go home." No, don't go home. Don't be such a spoil sport. Why do you have to ruin everything? No, you're upset. You're uncomfortable. You don't want to be there. Go home. It's okay. Go home. You don't need your friend's validation that it's okay for you to stay. Go home. So those are the ways in which for us to get around this is that when we start to stand our ground, then they can't push us around. And for those of you who are joining me, thank you so much for here. I hope you become a follower. I'm Dr. Kerry Kerr McAvoy, a licensed psychologist. And we're talking about gaslighting today. And the third one is that surround yourself with patient, non-judgmental friends who can give honest, supportive feedback, and then use them. And then use them. I don't know how many times I was in that toxic relationship and what he was doing so embarrassed me, so humiliated me that I didn't feel able to tell anybody, hey, I found out this information. I don't know if I can leave. I don't know if I want to leave. I really wish he'd work. Why isn't this guy working? I'm struggling with myself. I don't know what to do next. I was too embarrassed to say all of that. So what I did is I told nobody. And then on top of it, I didn't really have a good support system that knew how to help me, which is why I have the Toxic Free Relationship Club, which is a private membership for people who are coming out of these toxic relationships and are really looking for validation, encouragement, support. So if you're in that camp that you want access to a clinician, to me, and you want access to incredibly supportive a community, please consider joining our club. And if finances are an issue, please talk to me directly because I do offer financial assistance. It's so important for you to have a community that's really supportive and got your back, that really knows how to show up, is not going to gaslight you. Like, oh no, he doesn't mean it that way. Are you sure? He's a really good guy. Or you know what? She is so amazing and she does so much for you and her friends. She can't really have been done that. Really, come on. Do you think maybe you're being a little overly harsh with her about that? You don't want somebody in your life who's doing that to you. You want them to hear what you said, know that it's wrong, and then show up to like, how can I be there? How can I help you? That sounds really upsetting and very distressing. I'm horrified with you. So how can I help? So you want that kind of people in your life, and then you need to be willing to be exposed enough, vulnerable enough to use them, which is hard. I know it's hard. I had a very hard time with that. As I said to you, for those who heard earlier, I came from a background where we just pulled ourselves up from the bootstraps. Somebody said that hyper independence. Yes, I'm a hyper independent person. I've had to be because I've been on my own for most of my life. So it's really hard to know how to let people in, but it's such a pivotal part. And when I have done it with those around me and then they've done it back with me, it makes all the difference. So if you're struggling with really finding a good community, consider joining Toxic Free Relationship Club. It's an amazing group. All right, I've talked a super long time. I've talked over 50 minutes. So I've been reading your comments that are coming through. Any questions for me in the last 8 minutes before we sign off today? And yeah, and for those of you like, is this going to be taped? Can I watch this again because I missed part of it? Yes, it is. It's being taped in its entirety on YouTube. You can find it. It's called it's 3 ways to gaslight proof yourself. So there is a copy of it. So what are you guys' thoughts, feelings? Where are you getting struggled with gaslighting? What are the bullet points? For the bullet points is why people gaslight. I covered that. I also talk what is gaslighting and 3 ways to protect yourself from gaslighting. So Daphne, if you missed any of that, you can go watch that on YouTube. It's already up. So you actually can jump over there and start to watch it from the beginning because it's there. Well, thank you, Neo. I really appreciate that, Neon Witch, that you feel like I get it. I try to get it. I really try to. Yeah, there is a replay, Mocha Princess over on YouTube. It's already there because this whole thing has been taped. Yeah. I don't know how to say your name, Lori Lee. Oh, maybe that's how you say it. Lori Lee, I get you. I totally get you. Lori Lee asked, how come I need to see proof of his cheating in order for me to feel like I need to do something? Lori Lee, I went so far as I stalked the guy. I actually followed him. I was living in a town where people walked. It was a kind of like one of those little smaller villages where you can walk around. I actually stalked my partner across town. That's how desperate I got to find evidence. I'll tell you what, though, no evidence was good enough evidence. There wasn't such a thing as good enough evidence. And the other thing is I found was that it still left me in no more clear guideline of what to do than I felt before. So it didn't really matter how much evidence I had. I still was in tremendous conflict because what you're struggling with is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance persistent and chronic cognitive dissonance in these relationships is where you don't know what's real. And the person you're living with, you don't know who they really actually are. And so as a result, you kind of just stay stuck back and forth, back and forth. They're good, they're bad. They're good, they're bad. I hate them, I love them. I hate them, I love them. They think they're doing bad things. They say they're working really hard. You just don't know what's really true. So you just stay confused. So there's not enough evidence. So here's what I discovered, Laura Lee. I discovered my upsetness, my chronic fear, my feeling of lack of safety in this relationship. That was enough for me to say, I'm done. I'm done. I don't need to live like this. I deserve better. This is not something I would ever ask for my child, my niece, my grandchild, or my mother, or anybody I love to ever experience. There's no reason for me to continue in this ambiguity ever anymore. So that's what I went off of. That going forward, that's what I decided to do. Somebody leaves me in that kind of conflict, even though I've invested. See, part of it is sunk cost fallacy. We feel like, well, we put 30 years in and we have kids and we built this life and we have this house. And how can I tear it apart because I'm not happy or because something feels weird? No. You're really actually putting yourself you're saying your value is less than the 30 years, less than the house you built, less than the kid. Your value is more than that. Your value is way more than that. So yeah, I'm glad you're hearing me. Yeah, I've been there. I've so been there. I even got to the point that I counted his Viagra pills to see if he was using them without me. By the way, he did. There are 5 missing. And it wasn't enough. I didn't leave. I had missing Viagra and I still didn't leave. So I'm telling you, there's not enough evidence. Not enough. How do you explain the discard? Because they have no feelings. Annalisa, that's a great question. The discard is because they idealized you, never really wanted a real relationship with a real person. They actually wanted to have a relationship with this perfect person that nobody exists. And so once they figured out that you weren't that perfect person, then they're done and moving on. And that happens pretty quickly around something that you may not even be aware was a moment. It wasn't a moment to you, but it was a really big moment to them. Yeah, Shar, I do think ED and narcissism does go together. I think partly is because there's a lot of acting out and it makes them not have a really great, healthy self. They're not very healthy people. So they have I think they have a lot of problems with that and that functioning in that part of their life. So yeah, you do lose your health. You do lose your health in that staying in that relationship. Those of you who are still in that relationship, trying to make it work, trying to dig in and stick it out, you may not realize how much it's costing you psychologically, costing you emotionally, and certainly costing you physically. I know for me, it was after I left that relationship, and I do think that he was poisoning me. It's not something I talk a whole lot about, but I was very ill. I did describe it in the book. He stood to gain most of my inheritance if I died. So I do think that he was. I had symptoms of being poisoned by arsenic, actually. So I was sick. When I got out of that relationship, I was sick. The name of the book, for somebody's asking, is Love You More. So yeah, I was physically sick, but I was also sick. So it created, I was pre-diabetic, my blood pressure, I was not hypertensive. I showed fatty liver disease. I mean, I was showing all sorts of inflammatory problems. And it's taken me a few years to work my way out of that physically. I'm now 4 years post that relationship. But I even collapsed on a plane. And there was a doctor who was on vacation. He was not happy that I was sick on that plane. We were traveling international. They almost landed in Bogota, Colombia, because I had collapsed and lost consciousness for a period of time. And the doctor on board thought I had either suffered a heart attack or had suffered a mini stroke. When I came to, and I knew this was urgent, I came to, and they started talking to me and trying to ask me questions. I could see the pictures of the items that they were asking. They wanted to know what I ate for breakfast. I could see the scrambled eggs and the bacon that I had for breakfast, and gobbledygook came out of my mouth. That's it. And I knew that meant that I was aphasic, that I was actually having problems with speech, and that's why he thought I had a stroke, that I was showing signs of stroke. So yeah, I felt fragile. I felt so fragile. Oh, thank you so much. Someone just bought my book. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'd love to know what you think, Tay, when you get done with it. Yeah, so it's difficult. So this, guys, we got to wrap it up because I have another meeting that I'm jumping to. But I'm always live on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. And I love chatting with you about this stuff. I do announce a topic a day ahead. So if you ever want to know, hey, what is Dr. Kerry going to speak about on? Oh, thank you, guys. Speak about on Tuesday. Jump over to YouTube and look up the live schedule because I always post it on Tuesday afternoon. Or I'm sorry, Monday afternoon. So you know what the upcoming topic's going to be. But I try to listen to you guys. So when I hear something that you're talking about and it comes up with a regular problem, then I make sure that I then talk about it. And I see that you want to talk about lying. Is there something specific about the lying shell that you'd like me to talk about? Yeah, so I always announce these topics. These are topics come out ahead and you're able to find out. I appreciate that so much. Yeah. So if there's something about lying is a form of gaslighting. I don't know if you knew that. Oh, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate that. Will it ever stop? No, liars tend to be liars. That's why we call them liars. Tends to be part of their personality. They don't feel they I felt with my ex that he thought the truth was optional. It was like part of his privacy. And that he didn't think that anyone deserved to know the truth unless he decided that they need to know it. He'd lie about everything. He'd lie about even stuff that didn't matter because he just didn't feel you needed to know. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all the love I feel today. I really, really appreciate it. I'll be back on Tuesday at 4 p.m. And let me know if there's a particular topic you want me to be talking about. I know a lot of the content creators lately have been feeling kind of dry and a little tired, and it's kind of hard to know what you guys want to hear. So, oh, Nia, thank you so much. You guys are not following Nia Renee. Please check out her stuff. It's How to Love a Better Woman. She's an amazing coach, amazing friend. I just adore her so much. And I'm thrilled she's here on this live for a moment. So thank you so much for that. All right, you guys, I will see you back here on Tuesday. Bye-bye.